Hi, everybody, and welcome to Office Hours, where we answer your digital technology and production-related questions every single day. Alexander Knight at Port Coquitlam, British Columbia, is our reader today. Alexander, what's our first question?
Yeah, our first question is, look, it's from me in Port Coquitlam, BC. How do I stop the Chrome helper notification, allow/disable pop-ups every time I open Dante Virtual Soundcard on macOS? I click do not allow, and they keep asking me every time.
And yet another computer annoyance. Alex Lindsay, help him out.
I'm trying to figure it out. I've never seen that before. Like, I've literally never had it open a Chrome helper. I'm curious as to your setup with Chrome.
That's the weird thing. I don't use Chrome. It's a notification that says Chromium helper allow or not allow, and it happens every time I open DVS.
Is Chromium a subset of Chrome, or is it a separate program? I've never.
Chromium's the engine.
It's a type of the engine for the browser.
Ah, okay.
Yeah, I have never had it happen, so I just don't know. Yeah, I've never seen it. Maybe Courtney's seen it. Courtney hasn't seen it. He doesn't have a Mac. He's going to tell you how to fix it. Get another computer.
I will tell you one thing, which upsets me to no end, and I don't think this has anything to do with it unless you have your browser open at the time, is Chrome has just blocked uBlock Origin, which was my favorite pop-up blocker that blocks a lot of these unwanted pop-ups. And they just ditched it so that it can no longer even run as an extension in Chrome anymore. So if you had uBlock Origin running in Chrome, they just disabled it, a few days ago, so that on all my machines now it's been, sent to the cornfield, as they say on the toilet.
They took the student, sent him to the corner, and said, "Face it and wear the dunce cap."
Mickey said Chromium is not Chrome. Giving permissions allows the controller to notify you that Dante hardware has new firmware. So I think that maybe the reason you're seeing it over and over and over again is that you allow it. I allow it. Like I just said, yeah, sure. Like I think that's Chromium is not Chrome. I think it is how it's using it, as Mickey said. It's how they're checking for it. So the reason they keep asking for it is because you keep saying no. If you say yes, they'll stop asking.
This is the online marketer's dream situation. Let us train people.
It's the controller. It's the controller itself that Mickey says it's the controller itself that requests permissions, not DVS. So yeah, you. If you just say yes, Alex, I've got an idea here. And I'm sure that the reason no one else sees it is because we all said yes. We were like, sure, So the question for you is say yes and see if it comes back.
Your best strategy for interneting in the modern era is every time you see a pop-up, just say yes. Go ahead. It's going to be fine.
All of them, but why did you say no to DVS? I mean, they don't want any trouble. They're just there to help.
Particularly if it comes from South Africa or Nigeria. Say yes all the time.
Yeah, no, it's
well, that was a fun question, and I didn't expect it to be Alexander, but thank you for it. If you're happy with that answer,
say yes and come back to us and let us know if it keeps coming up.
I asked you if you're happy with it. Say yes. Click the yes button. Anyway, did you have something else to say? I see your name down there.
I just want to say, I realized after I read that question that I lied. It's not DVS. It's Dante controller, and I did actually finally click yes last night, and I just opened it up, and it's not popping up again. Why does it lull me into a false sense of like control? Like I have a say. It says yes or no, but if you say no, we're going to ask you every time you open the application.
That's one of those things like, do you want to disable the disabling of the original question we asked you that you voted no to?
It's what we like to call a green eggs and ham mechanism.
Sam, I am. All right, I think we've played this to death. Let's head on to our next question.
Okay, our next one is from Zach Stallsmith in Chautauqua, New York. I was shown this product yesterday, and it apparently works fairly well. Has anyone else used this or something similar in their workflow?
And he's got a link to something called alphasound.tech. Alex Lindsay, did you investigate?
Yeah, I looked at it. This is what it is. So this is a D feedback. So for feedback and anti-reverberation, I would have to test it. I'd like to know if it worked. I don't know. I don't have any opinion about it. It's the kind of thing that for basic feedback, as Mickey points out, he said, Mickey says, if one needs this for something as basic as increasing their gain before feedback, they should be nowhere near a mixing console. It would be adding significant latency to their loudspeaker system. If you can't ring out a room, step away. Step away and ask for help. Go ahead.
It is a big problem. I mean, feedback is not one thing. It's a whole suite of things that can happen. And I think for most of us, training our ears to understand, I have feedback, what kind is it, and what is the right process to eliminate some of it if I need to. Courtney, your thoughts?
Well, Mickey, it does say 0 latency right there in the, right there in the top of the, under D feedback.
Well,
0 latency.
If they can spell it, it must be true.
So I'm not sure what they're doing. And there's this string. I'm not sure how, does it work only with this hardware? It's $500. And apparently you can buy this $139 analog USB interface or a $499 analog USB interface to a computer. Option one is to request this $364 computer. So I'm not sure if this hardware is required to run the plugin. It's kind of confusing. I'd have to read further and see.
Alexander Knight, can you shed any light on this?
So if you're an audio engineer, and it's already been said, you should definitely understand how to properly ring out and tune a PA system. But I will say, a lot of affordable digital mixers now will have some kind of automatic feedback suppressor, and I think there's a space in the market where this type of functionality, this technology does make sense. Because let's face it, a lot of bands can't afford a technician, and they don't understand how this stuff works. And I think that it is nice that this technology is available in the mixer for people to actually use if they actually need it. So I think there's a space, and I think it's perfectly okay for somebody to use it, because if it makes the difference between having a good show with no feedback or annoying the audience, I think people should just use it if they don't understand how to do it, or hire somebody.
I agree with you. You know, it's funny. I have changed so many of the things I used to think were flat out rules in the face of newer technology that helps. One of them is background noise reduction, which we talk about a lot here. For decades, I didn't think any of them were worth anything because they always really ate into the signal that I wanted to preserve. If I used some kind of background noise production suppression on something that I had recorded, I could always tell it changed my voice a lot. But in the modern era, now that everybody has algorithms and there's been so much research into doing that better, maybe not perfect, but better, I find myself having to change my opinion that I used to hold for a long time. I can't tell you whether this is the same or is different. I would trust somebody with really good ears who knows what they're doing in audio and ask them to give it a listen before and after you apply this and see if it is nibbling away at the signal they want to keep, or if it's doing a good job, as some of these background noise reducers now do. We talk a lot about a couple of brands of those noise reducers in high-end hardware that really do help you get a good signal out of things. But I just don't know which direction it is, and so I would want to look at people I trust and have them analyze it professionally rather than just saying, hey, that should fix it. I'll throw $500 at them. I'm generally not a big fan of doing that. I believe we're going on to the next question.
Logan Gibson in Gadsden, Alabama. What are your go-to ways to secure cables when packing up? We have been using bongo ties and think tank whips. Curious what others have found useful.
Courtney, start us out.
You know, many years ago, I found something in this old electronics store that had been there for like 70 years. And it was from 3M or Scotch, and it came in a red and yellow box. And it was a roll of tape. It came in a roll. It was a polyester tape with hooks on one side, Velcro hooks on one side, and Velcro loops on the other side. And it was like $7 for like 400 feet. Unheard of. And so I bought every roll that they had. And I've been using that for about 30 years now. And I cannot find it anymore. They don't make it anymore. They stopped making it 10 years ago. I think it had been discontinued when I bought it.
Hopefully not made with toxic
So I
chemicals.
tell you so that you could use it, but you can't because I own all of it left on the marketplace. But
And he's selling it for $500
for a
for a 3-foot strip.
Wrap it around cable, wrap it around, if you're securing cables to a leg of a table or something, you could gather them all together and then make a loop around it and tie it up. And it wouldn't, since there was no adhesive involved, it doesn't get sticky. It comes off cleanly. You can throw it away because it's disposable. You don't have to worry about keeping it again. And it was great. What I just discovered the other day is that I've started using for small cables to keep them gathered up. I used to use rubber bands and, make them into a small little hank and then put a rubber band around them and then throw them into a pouch or something. But because if you let them go in there loose, they get all tangled up. But I discovered these things, which are scrunchy. How do you pronounce that?
Scrunchy ties from the
they're
women's hair
kind of like
products
scrunchy
section.
ties for little girls to do their hair. And unlike rubber bands, they're nice and stretchy and elastic, and they're coated with with a nylon cover that keeps the rubber from decaying. That's the main problem. If you use rubber bands and you throw them in something and they're exposed to oxygen, about a year later they dissolve and turn to dust and just break instantly. But these things tend to hold up pretty well. These are great for gathering cables around test gear. If test gear comes with test leads on it, like a multimeter. This holds the test leads to the multimeter and keeps them from getting tangled. And these are only about $5 for like 80 of them. So they're pretty cheap. That's
cool. Alex Lindsay, thoughts?
I'd like to say it depends. so anyways, when in doubt.
All right, let's say score, ding. There's one for today.
So the most common thing for me for cables are these little Velcros that have their own eye in them, and I attach them to the cable. I really hate ones that don't. Otherwise, I end up with a pile of them. I want them to stay on the cable. So and oftentimes this is the last little bit where I tie it to a tripod or whatever. I move it up or down the cable so that I can kind of create another stress point, so it does not pulling from the cable either. Almost all my cables have some version of this. So some are a little thicker or thinner, but they're all this eyelet, and I use them pretty heavily. We have made ones with our logo on them, and it's been really useful. So with Pixel Core, we had hundreds of these cables, and we started putting them on the on the cable there. And you can get really long ones, by the way, just in case you have someone said under 75 feet. Velcro for lighter cables, but I use Velcro for up to about 200 feet. The way we handle the thickness of a cable typically is that we make the diameter bigger as we're rolling the cables. So in fact, one of the things that I've talked about in the past is that I don't have it on this cable, but when we were with audio cables, one of the big things we got in video cables we got into was very clearly defining the diameter by marking one point right at the head and another point here, and when you bring them together, it defines the diameter of that cable so that all your 10-foot cables are the same. Exactly. And the reason that you do that is that when you put them back in the cases, they all sit inside of each other. So the 10s were bigger than the 25s, and 25s are bigger, the 10s are smaller than 25s, 25s are smaller than the 50s. And the only real issue you get into is that you can now pack a case that's well over 100 pounds. A 1650 gets over well over 100 pounds, and so you need two people to pick it up. So because there's no air in those. Anyway, that's so as far as that goes, as far as those tie-ups, I don't usually use Bongo ties just because they end up laying around somewhere. We use them for camera rigs, but we don't use them for the cables. Use a lot of the cubes. So Eagle Creek, I think, makes these cubes that all they're modular and they all fit together. And we use a lot of those cubes to stack a bunch of those cables. The cables will still be Velcroed, so they don't get intermixed with each other, but then they get put into these cubes and then put into a case. And that way we can kind of keep them in order. The SDIs are in one cube and there's different lengths or whatever that are all kind of separated out. So those are as far as cables go, I think that's usually how we have some people that hate that they open up there like, you got all these cubes. But to me, it's kind of chaos if you open up a case with just raw cable. The nicest one that I've seen is there was a German company that we worked with that they had a rolling case. I could try to find the photo. They have a rolling case and they have slots, and they would have the lengths of the cables in these slots on a giant rolling case, and it was just beautiful. Then they dropped their cables into it, and it was so German. It was so German, and it was just so precise, and it looked so nice, and it was all well built. And anyway, that's the best cable case we've seen.
I tend to use the same ones Alex does, but I tend to buy them in colors. You can get a pack of about 100 of these for maybe $15 or something like that, and they last forever. These probably go back 8 to 10 years now, and I like the fact that they have that lock-on thing. Also, I used to color code different lengths of cables, so all my blue cables I knew were 10 feet and so on and so forth, so you could instantly see from across the room which one you're trying to get to. Anyway, hope that helped, Logan. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael is asking, what would be a modern device that would have the same leveling functionality that the Shure Level-Loc was originally intended for?
Alexander Knight, do you want to weigh in on this?
Yeah, so the Shure Level-Loc, although I haven't actually used it, it's a really interesting device, and of course now it's been re-released because it's been out of production for a long time. So Black Lion, just so we know what this is before I talk about alternatives, but basically this thing was originally designed for public speaking. It's very, very interesting because it does not give you, much like the compressor that I'm going to suggest you, there are no parameters for adjusting typical attack and release or ratio. So you get an input level knob, which basically sends the signal into the compressor circuit. And you get this very fascinating distance selector, which will determine the compression. And then, of course, you can adjust the mix to taste by using the mix knob. How much of that compression do you actually want in the actual mix? Interesting thing about this when I was looking into it and looking at the re-release of this product is that you can get subtle compression, but also it was known for being used as a creative effect because you could get very heavy-handed, crunchy compression out of it. So maybe you might throw it on a bass guitar on a rock track or something like that and get a little kind of distorted bass guitar out of it. So it could be used for that effect. So as an alternative, and I wouldn't call it modern because it's been around since, well, way before I was born. But if you want something with simplified controls, I would look at the Teletronics LA2A. And of course, this piece of hardware, which by the way, you can still buy today through Universal Audio. They have they own the rights to it, so they can call it that because it was originally Teletronics. Now it's Universal Audio. So no attack or release. It is programmed, has fixed time constants. So you have your input, which is basically your signal going into the compressor circuit. You have gain reduction, so how much compression you have. And that's basically it. It is as dead simple and easy as you could possibly have it. And that is a great compressor that can be used on vocals and a lot of other things. But more commonly, I love it on vocals, anything pretty much. It's a classic compressor, and if you want something simple as an alternative, you can use those in plug-in format. Universal Audio also makes a plug-in of this as well, both the DSP and native version. Lots of companies have recreations of this in plug-in format, but the Universal Audio is by far the closest thing to the real thing.
Courtney Gooden.
Yeah, and they just announced in January of this year a new plug-in from Kornif, Korneff, audio and Black Lion audio that emulates the old Shure device that you can see there as a plug-in, and they also make a hardware version, I think, so you can get them from Kornif Audio. You can use it either as a plug-in or as a hardware device, so look into that. I think it's $149 for the new one. So if you're nostalgic for the old Shure Level-Loc, there's a way to reproduce that sound. Just available this year.
Alex Lindsay.
Competent audio engineer. So anyway, I was going to go backwards though. I don't breaking the rules just because this case was so good. We were talking about the cables. That's the case that I was talking about. See, if you look at this, it's got little slots so that you can move these. You can move these back and forth. So you decide
what did that
how much
beast weigh?
Oh, I have no idea. You put it on a truck. It's a road case. You don't think about you don't
The
think about how
doesn't care.
Yeah, I mean the forklift is like that's all the same to a forklift, and so but it's got wheels. It stacks inside of the other one. But this is these these pop up and slide down. So no matter what weight you need, you can do it. It's just such. It's like, I took a picture of it. It was so good. I was in Rome, and they were coming in from Germany.
There you go. Anyway, hopefully that helped you. When it comes to leveling, I got to tell you, the one thing that I realized, I used to do one kind of max leveling and compression when I was working on spots that had music behind them, and I realized that the same compression I was using on those spots, I tried to use it on my voice solo. It was horrible. And I realized that I was the tool that I was using, which was a real brick wall, get everything up to max because I was using it for spots and the voice really had to be out in front. It sounded great as long as there was a music bed behind it, but you took away the music bed and had somebody listen to just the voice, and it was way too harsh for that. So it just reminds me that audio is always a recipe thing. It's never if you do this in this case, it will always work for you. And that's why we say often, get somebody with good ears and get somebody who has experience, and they will understand how to balance this. It's very much like a good cook in the kitchen. I'm sorry, just reading the recipe does not make you a great cook. It's the beginning of that, but it's somebody who will taste the main ingredient and say it does not, or it has too much salt already, so let me adjust the recipe so that these tastes balance in what I'm trying to do. And that's, to me, how audio should always be approached. Alex, you had a follow-up?
Yeah, I think one of the hard parts is people just want something to be good enough. They just want the show to work. I was having this conversation. I was helping my kids, are in different bands. Both of them. My son plays violin. My daughter plays a lot of instruments, and I was helping shoot some of the stuff last night at the school. And of course, I want the audio. I shot the video of it, and I was like, so do you got Dante? And they're like, yeah, we have Dante, but I guess the integrator locked it all up, like that you can't get into the Dante thing to change the routing because they don't want to. And he said, in one of the other schools I work at, they do let us change the routing, and they've made mistakes. I was like, yeah, but they learned how to do it, and so I think that we have to be willing to have things not work. And sometimes you're not willing to make it not work, but I think sometimes you need to be willing to have things be a little chaotic so that people can actually get good at it. I think that's one of the challenges.
And we've said before that, these automated tools that we have access to today, you can get much farther, much faster by putting the make it good button in, engaging that. But I think Alex is exactly right. You don't think about it as much, and maybe you don't need to right now, but it is that exploration that turns people from average to really good at this stuff.
I mean, I think that the problem is that they'll often say that perfect is the enemy of good enough, but good enough is the enemy of great.
Yeah,
you're never going to be great if you're just
particularly when almost everybody can get to just turn it on, use the automatic controls, and do it. Then your competition is everybody who can buy the device. If you know how to defeat all the automated stuff and really make something that is palpably better, then suddenly you become more valuable as a practitioner compared to your competition. Next question.
This one's from the QR code. Tim Mann in Melbourne, Australia. Do you recommend an M1 MacMini to use a USB-C Ethernet for Dante DVS?
Alexander, you're going to turn around and help us.
Yes, I found very quickly when exploring Dante and with Mickey McAteor's help here that using the built-in network interface on your Mac is not suggested. It is problematic. So almost any external adapter should work fine. Now, the nice thing about AudioNate, the company that made Dante, is they have very in-depth documentation with specifics about right down to the chipsets and recommended adapters. So far, I have a combination of a few different brands that are working fine. I have the Uni brand of USB-C to Ethernet adapters. I also have Ugreen. Those have been working just fine. I also use my OWC Thunderbolt docks Ethernet port specifically just for Dante. That works just fine. And also another notable mention is the Belkin brand, which is generally pretty good.
Alex.
Yeah, I definitely, you definitely want to use it though. You don't want to use the one that's built into the Mac. So ask me how I know. so anyway,
there's a horror story behind that somewhere.
So if you're using Dante, definitely find one of them. I've not found one the Uni one is the one that I have the most of, or either that or Anchor, because I have an Anchor one that's like a split out.
Hey, don't forget, we're taking your questions always. You can ask questions, chat about them, and vote on them in Mukana. That's kind of our back-end interface. If you'd like to be a part of that, it's real easy. Go to officehours.global/join. We'll send you an email within a day or two. Once you've done that and kind of in the system, then you have some extra access, including the live chat that happens every day while the show is going on. Great community of people who are talking about what we talk about here. That's officehours.global/join. If you'd like to get a little more involved and kind of participate at the next level with the show. Let's get to our next question.
This question is from me. A customer of mine is in a sanctuary. He's trying to convert 13 incandescent fixtures to DMX. Chauvet and American DJ offer DMX dimmer packs and 4-channel configs. Anyone done this and know of a better hardware solution in one box that can do higher counts?
Courtney Gooden, you have some thoughts?
Well, I'm not sure if what your application and the type of fixture you have there, Alexander, but I did find this, and I've never used these, but this is interesting. And there's this company called Super Lighting LED that makes these bulbs that are standard Edison-based bulbs that'll screw in any lighting fixture, if that's what it is, that are DMX controllable. They're RGB plus tungsten and daylight adjustable, and you can set them from, I guess, a DMX controller. They're also 2.4 gigahertz. For communication, and you use them, I think, in conjunction with a DMX to 2.4 gigahertz wireless transmitter. They're kind of pricey for about $22 a piece. So that might be a solution for you. They could just screw those bulbs in and get one of the little DMX wireless 2.4 gigahertz transmitters and put them in the DMX controller and control up to 512 of them, I guess. That's a possible solution.
Alex Lindsay.
Yeah, the only one that I've seen used for these things is the Electronics. So this is actually built for churches. so it's not the cheapest solution, but they build a variety of different things, and they're built for churches. In fact, I think this one, it says church theater stage lighting under its hub. So Electronics is probably this is a 12 channel, 12,000 watt or 1,200 watt. So that'd be something to look at.
Hope that helped you, Alexander. Let's go to our next question.
This one is from Daniel Patridge in Rochester, Minnesota, taking out an old Sony EX1R to record in cold and snow, recording 10-bit SDI to Blackmagic Video Assist, send it 24 PSF or 60i. Which would you prefer to edit with? Maybe just stick with the 8-bit 30p on the S/S cards.
Alex Lindsay.
I think you can do also 10-bit 30p out of it. So I think you can do 2997 out of the EX1. I'm almost certain that you can. Note that I believe that there is an upgrade available for the EX1 to make it a 3G output, I believe. There was one. You may not be able to do it now, 15, 20 years later. But there was one that would get, I believe, a 5994 signal out of there, out of the EX1s and EX3s. I used to own 3 EX1s and 1 EX3, I think. But you should be able to get a 10-bit signal, SDI signal out. 24 PSF will work if you want to be stuck at 24. 24 is fine for film. Like, just leave it there. Like, it's not fine for anything else. Like, just as someone who did lots and lots of podcasts at 24 because I couldn't afford the bandwidth, I did it for the same reason that 24 was created in the first place, which is that people were cheap. Remember, 24 frames a second is because we didn't want to pay for celluloid, or somebody didn't want to pay for celluloid in the early 20s. I didn't want to pay for bandwidth, so I did 24 for my early podcasts. But there's no reason to use it now. Other than film, for film and for TV things, when you're telling stories, use 24p. Don't use it for anything else. It's just a horrible format. So 30p is fine. 60p would be great for most of the stuff that you'd be shooting. But anyway, you just have to remember that if you're going to put this online, whatever you're shooting, if you're going to put it on YouTube or Facebook or anything else like that, it's 30 or 60. Like those are the two frame rates that they're doing. So if you do 24, it means it's going to be some junked up 24 to 30 format. It's not going to be 24, unless you're doing Vimeo. So
next question. Oh, I'm sorry. Did you have a little follow-up, Alex, or are you done?
Oh, that's it.
Okay. Next question.
Craig Kadoki in Toronto, here's a nice resolution test. Do we think this was shot at 4K maybe, and no one checked her jacket in other resolutions? And the video wall is pretty bad in close-ups too, and there's a YouTube link there.
Yeah, I think there's two different things going on here, but let's go to Courtney Gooden first.
Yeah, it's Moray Povich, and as you can see it here in the, I don't know, it depends on what resolution you have, you're watching this at. So there's two places that moray can occur, or maybe more. One is between a fine dot pitch display that you're photographing and the sensor of the camera, whether it be a Bayer sensor or a 3-chip sensor. Moray can occur when you get to a multiple of the resolution of the sensor and the pitch of the background. And if you're doing a big and she's also wearing the check coat, which is also another moray subject. So you get in the wide shot, her coat starts to moray a little bit, and then the close-up, the screen starts to moray. And with this big video wall, you can see the moray here on her coat a little bit. And of course, the second place that moray can occur depends on how you're viewing it. Because if the signal is capable of generating those dots, it can beat against the frequency of your display that you're viewing it on later. And since we can't predict that, moray can still occur if you've got tight dot pitched stuff. So finding moray is difficult, but I would say in this situation, the thing to do is if you're going to have a big video wall like this, don't have the commentators stand close to it so that it's including a piece of it when you shoot a close-up of them. So have either arrange the shots so that they're standing a little further away and you can pull a close-up of both people without getting the edge of the video wall in it, or get a much higher resolution like the Sony crystal LED that doesn't have as big a dot pitch that's going to create moray problems. And even 4K, 4K will help. But with that dot pitch background at 1080p, you're probably still going to see moray.
Alex Lindsay.
Every time I see that, I just go, when a screen hits your eye like a big pizza pie, that's a moray.
That's a moray.
so anyway, yeah. So I was going to try to sing it, and I was like, I better not. It's too early for that. Yeah, if you see it here, the big rule with if you have a dot pitch, you almost never want to get this close to an LED screen, even if it is very tight. It's just you're too close to the screen. Even a television screen might moray if you're that close to it. So you really need to space away from that. And so that's the best way to fix that is just to get away. But there's so many. They broke so as Courtney pointed out. They broke so many rules, like all the rules, like don't wear patterns, don't wear. There's a couple things when people say like, well, what should I do? And they'll be kind of this, like they'll ask for just a couple tips for being on TV, and I'm like, no white, no black, no patterns, like that. If you just do those three things, many things will do better. I said, I'll generally go, if you have highly saturated things, it will be problematic. If you have warm colors, it's going to compete with your skin color. Why do I have blue everywhere or green everywhere? Is because they're cool colors, and I don't have to compete with the skin. My skin doesn't have to compete with those colors. And so these are all the things that you tend to try to give people, and they broke most of those rules in this clip.
I will also mention the two words that too many people don't know: wardrobe tests. Even with corporate people, there was not a shoot that I ever did that we didn't bring the people who are going to be on camera before the actual cameras roll for the shoot and say, we're going to do a wardrobe test. And for things that we cast, we would have the people bring 3 or 4 things. I can't tell you the number of times that one of those 3 or 4 things that they brought turned out to be a moray problem. And so we just say, next outfit. Next question.
Tommy Johnson, St. Paul, Minnesota, USA. Are there any great uses for using stick PCs in production?
Courtney Gooden.
Yeah, I used to use them all the time. Here's a picture of my playback rig that I used to use for doing playback in shows like Dexter and Desperate Housewives. And in here, you see these two little keyboards. Inside there are two stick PCs that are forming the source of my playback material for playback. And they're small, they're light, they're fanless. You can use them on the set without interfering with the audio getting mad at you. And they're so compact, you can fit two of them inside this case, along with a Blackmagic switcher and HyperDeck and Video Assist, lots of other stuff. And you don't have to worry about them. They don't tend to overheat or anything, and they work great for playback. I've been able to use them for playing back with custom software that I wrote for doing playback. And so I could carry them around in my laptop bag. You could use a laptop for this, but these are handy to carry around. You can stick them behind a big screen TV and, send a nice 1080p or even a 4K image to them because they run Windows. So they can output 4K in a lot of them, and a lot of these mini PCs like the GMK Techs here have two HDMI ports that can deliver 4K 60 on them, and you can stick these behind a big display for digital signage, and for doing playback you can remotely control them because they all have Wi-Fi built into them, so I control them with those little wireless keyboards from nearby.
Alex Lindsay.
We use them for cart. So when we want to put captions, well, it's not captions, but in a live room, you want to put a screen a cart screen in this room that has what would be the captions. So someone's on and so we have a captioner, somewhere in the world listening to listening to the live show. Rarely do we have the captioner in the room. The captioner is somewhere in the world, and they're getting an audio feed directly, low latency, 200 milliseconds or whatever. That's why I used to own all those Skype TX boxes, because those captioners would jump in over Skype, and then they would sit there, and we had 6 of them means I can do 24 rooms at a time, and they all go out. And what we would do is take those little Chrome sticks, and we just put them into the back of the TV and give them a URL. And what you use is there's a software called Stream Text. So Stream Text would, you just give it the URL for that room, and then you got cart. So it was, and it made it much easier for us than trying to wire all of those monitors to it. So that was kind of that. So as far as sticks go, another use that we're starting to play with for some of the stuff that we're doing to watch things and everything else as we're working is this Dashmaster 2K, which Keenan Campbell uses for his some of his disaster stuff, and now I'm kind of addicted to it. So Dashmaster 2K, this is something where you can kind of build a grid of things that you want to put on your computer, but it's just a URL. So a little stick PC would work well. I'm using a Melee for it right now, but a stick PC would be just fine.
By the way, if you value what we do here, there are a few ways you can help. You can like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can volunteer at officehours.global/volunteer. That helps you become part of the team. And there's a lot you can learn and some very nice people to meet who help us with the show every day. And if you'd like to make a donation, we are a 501c3. You can donate at officehours.global/donate. Any of those 3 things will help you support the show and keep us doing what we do every day. Hopefully something you enjoy. Next question.
This one's from the QR code Tim Mann in Melbourne, Australia. Has something changed in Extra Hours audio processing? As I've noticed, the last 2 show replays on YouTube iOS have some audio breakups.
Alex, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, this is why we're doing it, and so we're figuring out a couple things as far as delivery from in the cloud from our Zoom the Zoom Pro AVs that we're doing out to the Viz system. So Vector is getting those, and we're still figuring out some of the bits and pieces, and we've changed the infrastructure a little bit, and it's not working perfectly, but we will get it better. But the reason that we do it every week is so that we can iron out all these details as we figure it out. So Extra Hours is a great conversation, but it's also a little bit of a lab. So we're constantly changing things there, and you'll see things not always work perfectly, but I think it's we're still figuring it out.
Courtney Gooden.
Yeah, you just addressed it. I was just going to say, I noticed it on my big screen TV playing back YouTube, and also on my computer playing back YouTube only on Extra Hours did it have the YouTube player have this problem, and it was on everybody's audio, so I know it wasn't a a dropped packet issue on just one of the guests, it's tended to be on the playback. Yeah,
and I think that VisRT is doing some investigation with us on that process. So we're working with the team to figure out whether it's it could just be a setting that we have there. Again, we're constantly moving those settings around to figure out what the optimum way to do the show. And so sometimes it's going to work, and sometimes in the early days of office hours, and this is like early days, except we're moving at 1/7 the speed. So that's the hard part is that we do it here every day. So the speed at which we evolve is much slower on extra hours, but by doing it every week, we're able to kind of figure out some of those bits and pieces.
We should get a T-shirt with a legend on the back that says, "We break things so you don't have to."
Yeah, exactly.
Next question.
Peter Rosado in Las Vegas, Nevada, recommended DSAN Q model for basic presentation software to control back and forward in a slide deck, but have great range.
Alex Lindsay, what's your preference?
All of them have pretty good range. If you're doing it depends on what you mean by great range. The full-size ones, let me see if I can cut to this here. There are three major ones that you can do, and I guess most of them are out of stock. But these are the one that I keep in my bag when I show up for somewhere that I need to use one is this one. So I don't use any of the junk that I usually am handed when I'm going to a conference to speak at some kind of breakout room. I plug this in and kind of go, I'm going to do this. So this is the one that I have because it fits in my backpack. We used to have a lot of these. These are the slightly larger ones. And then the full-size ones, I used to have a bunch of these as well. Full-size ones are great. These look like they're out of stock for whatever reason. Maybe they're replacing them. You'll find that the range for almost everything is acceptable with this micro. I have not run into a place where I was walking around. Now, I'm not using it on a stage and having it somewhere. The big advantage of these Perfect Qs from DSAN is that you'll be standing on a stage. The receiver is somewhere in the back, behind the stage, but it can be almost anywhere and it's going to pick it up. I think we've done it. The furthest we've done it is about 300 feet. And it just works. It just always works. And people will say, "Oh, my clicker isn't working." It's usually because the reason when someone's clicker doesn't work, it's usually because we took the clicker away from them. Those ones that have the light on them, we can either drive. You can see there's like an arrow going both directions, going forward and back on these. And this one's great for personal because you're not really looking at it. But for these two, they have little arrows. And what we do is oftentimes take away the speaker's ability to actually move the slides. So when they hit the button, we see an arrow. And if it doesn't work, it usually means the operator wasn't paying attention. So they look down for a second and the arrow hit. So, but we take it away so that the speaker can't screw it up. So that's when I do it personally. Obviously, I just leave it directly connected. But I think that you'll find that the micro works pretty well for almost anything. You throw it in your backpack, and it's going to be a lot better than almost anything else someone gives you, unless they're handing you another Perfect Q.
Courtney Gooden.
Yeah, I agree. The DSANs are the gold standard there because they have that separate antenna that gets the signal away from your hand, and that's the important part. Because your hand blocks that 2.4 gigahertz signal effectively and dropping its range, and then you put the receiver behind a video wall or something, and then you'll never be able to control the stuff. If you look at these other presentation controllers, like from Logitech, they're all, you hold them in your hand and you're covering, the antennas are internal in them. And, they may work great if the receiver is within about 10 feet of you. But I find that once they get further away with a room full of people whose cell phones are all tuned at 2.4 gigahertz, you're going to be in trouble. The solution to this is to run a long USB cable and put the receiver right at the lectern where the person is speaking, so it's only about 3 or 4 feet, and that'll minimize the signal-to-noise ratio you get on any of those if you don't happen to have the DSANs with the high-power transmitter on them, to try and get it to work in a situation where it probably wouldn't otherwise.
Hey, I'm noting it's Thursday night, which means that tonight one of our extra shows comes on, The Rundown, a show with David Paskin. It's part of the Office Hours community, and if you haven't checked it out, that's tonight. It happens a few hours after our show, I think 6 p.m. Pacific or 7 p.m. Pacific, one of the two. But you can go on YouTube and look for The Rundown with David Paskin. Next question.
Paul Valhus in Austin, Texas. We looked at the Shure MoveMic 88 Plus a couple of days ago with Laura. What are the professional media use cases, and does it stack up to other recently released MV7 series mics?
A lot of people want to weigh into this. Alexander Knight's going to start us off. Alexander?
No, well, the MV7 is a much larger diaphragm dynamic microphone. So, I mean, the MV7 is going to sound better than the MoveMic. But the MoveMic 88 Plus, my suspicion is that, considering the cost too, is that it is mainly at people that need to have something ultra light, ultra portable. You know, I get a lot of customers that are real estate agents, and those people really like these types of small mic solutions, or even like the Shure Move wireless little transmitters. Actually, they have a pretty good quality lav mic built in, and the transmitter is a lot smaller than the Rode Wireless Go system. So those are pretty popular as well. They don't do internal recording, but I think it's a lot of people like that are doing Instagram videos, TikTok videos, quick and dirty stuff where they don't have time to do production, and they don't have the skills to do that.
Alex Lindsay.
I think it's a pretty interesting product as far as allowing a lot of folks to, be able to get audio, again, in non-mission critical things to make it work. I do believe it does also have a USB-C availability, so you could theoretically wire it in. So it's Bluetooth to make it something you can just kind of move where you want it to move, but I think you can also wire it together. As a really small mic, it looks super interesting to me. I didn't get to be on the show on that day. I was doing a production, but I'm excited to play with it. Hopefully I'll get one to test soon.
Courtney Gooden.
Yeah, it had a number of features that most other small wireless mics don't have. And, this is kind of what it looks like without a windscreen on it, naked here. And it's tiny. And it works in a number of ways. It connects Bluetooth to a phone to give you a stereo input from that microphone. And the other interesting thing I found about it is it has switchable patterns in that it can do stereo at 60 degrees, so like this. And at 60 degrees, it might be good to put between two people who are sitting on the same side of a table, who are on a panel, let's say, and you don't have enough microphones to cover them individually. You could use that, one person in one channel and the other person in the other channel at 60 degrees. It also has a figure 8 pickup, I think in mono. I meant to ask Laura about that when she was on the show, so that you could put it between two people that are facing each other with a figure 8 pickup. And it has a mid-side, which is used to record dual channel transmission, two channels out of the single microphone, one with a mid and one with a figure 8 lobe on either side of it, which gives you an adjustable pattern pickup so that you can adjust it in post with a MS decoder. So if you're using it connecting to a phone or to something wirelessly with a receiver, with their receiver, you can record two channels MS with it. So that's interesting too. All those things are features that you won't find on most of the other 2.4 gigahertz wireless mics.
Alex, you wanted to come back?
Yeah, Roscoe points out that it doesn't record on board. And my guess is that this is the continuing dance with Zaxcom. If you do wireless, they have a patent related to wireless and recording, and some people have paid the patent. Some people have only made the stuff available overseas. So if you're, like sound devices, if you buy the A20s in the United States, they do not record locally. If you buy them in the UK, then they do. so it depends on where you're at. So I'm guessing that Shure has not put that in because, man, with all of these, it'd be an incredible feature. With every mic that we use for podcasting, being able to record locally would be kind of life-changing. To be able to send someone in something and have them just pull out a memory card or plug it in and have us access it. It'd be a big deal.
For me, the big thing that I was impressed with, Laura was talking about it on the show on Tuesday, was the fact that it works just with an iPhone or a Samsung phone by itself. It doesn't need any additional receiver or something like that. If it's coming directly into your iPhone, I'd be interested in figuring out whether if you ran something on an iPhone or on your laptop, for example, because it'll do that too. It'll come directly back to your laptop as a signal. Could you run something like Audio Hijack or Loopback and do a separate recording there so that your local record moves off the microphone, yes, but could be done on your laptop.
Well, there's lots of ways. Yeah, there's lots of ways we can do local recordings with those things. And I think one of the advantages of a Bluetooth is that it will theoretically, until we test it, we don't know,
right,
theoretically show up as a phone, as an earpiece to the phone, which means that if you're using there are some apps and some systems that will not see anything else on purpose. They're trying to keep everybody in the same level of quality, and so they won't let you use external mics. And this might be a hack to that as well.
Yeah, so we're all I think a little interested. It was an interesting presentation. Again, that was Tuesday. If you want to go back and review it. Next question.
Douglas Carmichael asks, I added the OptTronik LA2A and Bus SSL G Series bus compressor plugins to my Allen and Heath SQ-5 console. When would you use either compressor? Could you use the bus compressor on groups or individual sources effectively?
Alexander?
You sort of answered your own question there, Douglas. Yes, you absolutely could. The thing is, there's no handbook in the audio world that says you must only use an LA2A on, insert whatever. But LA2A compressors, which I talked about earlier, are great on vocals, and they're a mono compressor. So typically, I would use those on individual channels and on my groups and any other kind of stereo buses on drums. The SSL G Series bus compressor is a classic compressor, kind of known for gluing things together, as they say, gluing the mix together. So that is something I could put on and would put on my master bus or any kind of additional subgroups. For example, if I had bussed my drums, my percussion stuff to any kind of stereo subgroup, I would put it on there. And that's how I would use it, and that's how a lot of people use it.
Alex Lindsay.
Marty Atias says the bus compressor is VCA-based, which is fast-acting. The OptTronik's optical detector is slower. Each have unique qualities and can be used on channels and buses depending on the source material.
Yeah. What we're hearing is give it a shot. Listen critically and see whether it's giving you what you want. Next question.
David Arsenault in Bonaventure, Quebec is asking, I'm trying to use mimoLive from a remote location to stream a PTZ CR-N300 in an arena to YouTube. I'm able to access and control the PTZ webpage through VPN. mimoLive can detect the NDI camera, IP, and name, but I have a black image. Any idea?
This is not the first time we've heard this. Alex, can you help?
Yeah, Mickey said use NDI bridge to transport NDI over public internet, or better yet, transport via SRT for higher resiliency. Yeah, so I think it's not getting the bits the way it expects to get them. I would see if the camera was capable of delivering an SRT signal, which would probably be better if it's trying to transverse anything that's complicated.
Next question.
This one's for me. Predictions about what Apple will do for the next Mac Pro refresh.
Ooh, if we were the old Tonight Show, we would pull out the turban and Johnny would go into prediction time. So everything you hear from now on has not been certified, and please do not make investment decisions based on it. But Alex, dive in.
I'm going to get a turban, a Johnny Carson turban. So when people ask it, I can put it on. That'd be the best. That'd be the best. I predict. Here's my prediction. I believe that it'll happen in June. I have no facts to back what I'm about to say up. I believe that it will happen in June, and it will look exactly like the Mac Studio, but with more I/O. So you can put cards in it. You'll have 8 lanes of USB of Thunderbolt. It's just the model right now has been, we're going to take the Mac Studio and then just the last one was, we'll take the Mac Studio and just give you all the I/O that you'd want from a Pro. Otherwise, they're the same computers, and it'll cost more. So you'll be able to buy, if you want to, you'll be able to buy up to $20,000 on it, because it's about $4,000 or $5,000 more. I think when the dust settles, maybe you get a little bit more RAM. But the Mac Studio at $14,000, the new one that just came out yesterday, I think it's 512 gigs of integrated memory. I think you can go up to 80 cores of it's a frightening piece of hardware.
So you've had experience with both the old cheese grater types and this. It seemed to me that the reason they did that form factor with the first new generation Mac Pros was just pure cooling, because there was all those holes in the aluminum and things like that. As you live with a studio, what's the cooling profile look like to you? Does it get super hot with all that power? Never gets hot.
I mean, I don't. I very rarely. I have the M1 Max. I didn't get the Ultra, and it's pretty darn fast all the time. It does a lot of things. It does a lot of things there. I mean, I am in the market sometime this year. My next one will probably be a Mac Pro, but the main reason I need the Mac Pro is because I want the lanes. I need need the I/O, the cards, the lanes, everything else. I kind of want to make it this kind of Uber. Now, I will say one of the things I'm excited about with the Studio is that it supports. I don't know how it supports it because it doesn't have enough I/O, but it supports up to 8 monitors out of the Mac Studio, and 4 monitors has been a little bit of a limitation for me. So I'm excited. I imagine you're gonna have to use breakouts to do that, to get that many. So that'll be interesting to see how that support works. But it can address 8 monitors now, and again, I think that would be, for me, that'd be really useful for my kit. And I think that, but I think that you probably get even more. My guess is you'll get 10 to 12 out of the Mac.
That's got to be a crazy graphics subsystem on that chip to drive that many monitors that fast. Wow. Courtney?
Yeah, I heard a rumor that Johnny Ive was coming out of retirement to come back to design the new one. And his latest design, here's a leaked image. It's an overlay.
Well, it'll be more expensive if it looks like an egg in this generation.
Has 3 Thunderbolt 5 connectors, but they sit on the bottom. So when it's sitting up, you have to put it up on a little stand. Otherwise, you can't get to the connectors on it. And it'll sell for $12,000. So, yeah.
Fascinating.
Be prepared.
All right.
Johnny's coming out of retirement.
Well, this is future predictions, so we're now out of that zone and back to the real world. So next question.
Roscoe Jones in Madison, Indiana. At NAB, are there events off of the show floor that are not to be missed? How about virtual events before or after NAB?
Oh, this could take an hour to go through. Alex, your thoughts? What are the
I actually don't know of any. I don't know of any virtual events. The ones that are usually the ones that we'll try to take our live view to cover are things like showstoppers and some of the smaller ones there that are really fun to kind of walk through. So I'm trying to figure out what the timeline is for those. To see, what those are kind of press-oriented events. And what's nice about them is that they tend to be a little bit smaller, a little bit quieter. And every booth is about 10 or 20 feet long. It's not these big, giant booths, and it's just easier to shoot new things. And so we're going to take a look at that. Of course, we're going to try to go on the floor with the live view as well. So there's a couple different things that we're going to be doing there. We are going to try to go after 5.1 again, as well as HDR 60 frames a second. So we're pretty excited to see where we can take that. And so stay tuned for what we're doing there. Oftentimes, the week before NAB, Blackmagic will have its own announcement, and we'll see if they do that. And that's the only thing that I'm really tracking.
It's one of the things I noticed after the pandemic. A lot of the things that used to be every year for Shure's for me, there was the super meet on one of the evenings, and there were various society gatherings at the local restaurants and bars, and it really depended on the vertical that you were mostly interested in. If you were a graphics professional, MGLA, or I can't remember who used to put on the big graphics show, they would always have it in a restaurant. They would, it was a pretty moderated cover charge, often covered, and you'd get a drink ticket. And the point was just to go in the evening and hang out with your peers. So I would suggest that if you're interested in doing that kind of socializing in the evenings, whatever you're interested in, look at the groups for those things and ask them if they're gathering at NAB. We used to do all sorts of ad hocs, and boy, I had every evening that I was at NAB, I literally would start at 8 in the morning. I wouldn't really even try to get up earlier than that because I knew I was going to be going until 2, 3, 4 o'clock in the morning almost every day. And that was because you would find one of these niche groups that you were really interested in that technology, and you'd find yourself in a restaurant or a bar late into the evening talking with people you never expected to meet. And they were the people who really shaped a lot of my career as I went through my many years at NAB. So don't dismiss the social part of this. And that's my suggestion, is to whatever groups you're a part of, ask around within your group and see if those folks are meeting somewhere. There's 1,000, 2,000, 5,000 of these little group meetings that happen every evening adjacent to NAB, because it's the one time of the year that all the people that you would like to meet are probably in the same place at the same time. Courtney, you had some thoughts?
Yeah, it used to be that some of the smaller manufacturers could not afford a booth on the show floor, so they would take out a suite in a hotel room, and they would pass out little cards on the floor. You'd find them at other people's booths sometimes, and so they'd invite you to their suite where you could, see the latest product from those smaller manufacturers. They may have outlawed that. I haven't seen them happen in a while. So there's that possibility. It happens more with the audio type of dealers, since they're dealing with speakers or something that may have to be played loud to in order for you to hear what they really sound like, and they discourage that on the show floor itself. So they will have a separate suite somewhere off the floor to let you monitor those, or either that or they build a soundproof booth on the floor, which gets kind of pricey. And remember also that NAB has their own little studio, usually that they operate from on the show floor between the two halls, where they interview people and they stream that. So you can take a look at that if you're not attending in person. And they'll interview some people about new and upcoming product announcements. And they do that daily. They have it 3 or 4 times a day. They broadcast from that little live studio that's set up, that's sponsored and manned by NAB personnel. So you can take a look at that as well.
Let's try to get our last one in here. One more question.
Paul Valhus in Austin, Texas. Can Harshid explain the Operation Sony headphones he's wearing and why he chose those?
Harsh, you want to give us a tour real quick? Whoops.
So I have on the XM5 headphones right now. I have the XM4s as well. With these headphones, my choice was the noise cancellation. So if I'm walking around my environment vacuuming, having a conversation on the phone, I could do my work and not be heard that I'm vacuuming. So that's the main reason, was the noise canceling. That's why I got them. But compared to the XM4s, the ear cups feel a little bit more sleeker. The drivers are, I think, 35 versus 40 on the comparison. So they have a little tighter sound if you're looking for that. I would say the previous models had more bass. These have a little bit tighter bass. But overall, comfort, lightweight, I think 230 grams is the weight on these specifically. And they have been going on sale, so definitely check them out. And then I've heard rumors maybe towards IFA in August, we will see the XM6s.
Cool. Thank you for the tour there. Thanks to our producers, everybody who's asked questions today. We couldn't do this show without you. To the panelists who show up every day and help with their expertise. We appreciate everybody who's been a panelist on Office Hours, and specifically those who showed up today. And our incredible back-end crew who are constant in working around the clock, basically, and all over the world to help bring you this show every day. Without any one of those three, this show is like a tripod. It would fall over and not do the same thing. So we appreciate every single one of you. The Talak Traversal today, we traveled 32,000 miles. That's 52,000 kilometers. And if you're paying attention to the most important statistic, that is 257 million bananas for scale. Thank you for watching Office Hours. We will be back here tomorrow doing it again. Take care.
Good job. Thanks.
Thank you all for being here. Yeah, well done.
Hey, look, the sun is out. It's supposed to be cloudy today, too, and rainy. Somebody didn't get the message. Thanks, Robert.
Yeah, Courtney, I'm going to call you. What's coming our way from your side of California?
Run to Costco while it's sunny.
See you all tomorrow.
Take it.
See ya. Bye.